Hi,
Hello.
what's up?
So, thank you for being here and having this conversation.
I am looking forward to this. Much looking forward.
Much.
Long pending.
Yeah, I know. We've been wanting to record stuff forever.
Finally happening. Yes.
So, I mean, the point of this is just to get to know you. And as much as I know you, there's so much more to know. And I just want to hear your story again, and in your own words. So, I wanted to just start with childhood. Like, what were you like as a kid?
My childhood was pretty solitary because I've been a single child, and for I don't know if that's how every single child is, but because of the fact that my father would be at work a lot of the time that I was growing up, and also away, I just spent a lot of time only by myself. And also my building setup, unlike some other friends I know, it was not extremely communal. So the community was, we had just six people in my building and six families in my building. So
you didn't play in the playground.
I had just like the watchman's son was like one of my closest friends, and so it was just like either a handful of kids who I would play with, but I also spent a lot of my time by myself. And
what did you do by yourself?
so either I invented all sorts of silly games. Like, I mean, it introduced me to two things, right? It introduced me to the world of books, which I'm very grateful for, because I've spent many summer vacations reading Famous Five and Secret Seven and Three Investigators, and and also because it was the book and then a lot of time alone, it also allowed me to be sort of free with my imagination. So I would, especially Famous Five and Secret Seven, it left like a deep impression. So I would hide little things in my building, like it could be a little note or some coins, or some odd little object, and hope that 2-3 years from the day I hid it, I would still find it, or someone else would find it, and it would sort of lend itself to a story for them. Or it could be like, wow, like what is this?
Where did this come from?
Yeah, is there like a mystery to it? Because in all these books there were like secret passages and underground tunnels, and I was like, oh man, like our lives are pretty boring. I tried to make silly things that would someday open themselves up to stories. So never found any of those though.
And you must have been weaving stories in your own head as you would do those things.
I was weaving. I would try and write those kind of things too. I struggled, of course, but and that still remains an aspiration to be able to write. I just so badly wish someone adapts Famous Five to screen.
Right.
Like, and Netflix does it, and we have like this amazing show like Game of Thrones, but or Harry Potter, but someone does a good job of it. I've always tried to recreate that. So there's still that latent desire.
Did you write when you were? So you've been writing since you were a kid.
Yeah, I didn't actively write then. Like, say this was in the 6th grade or 5th grade, so I was not putting pen to paper always, but I was still imagining it. I was always a little nervous or scared of writing.
Why?
Because of my, I don't know, like lack of comfort with the language. Or I mean, you can read it, but it's harder to imagine that you'd be able to write the same way.
Right.
There's a very popular Indian magazine called Tinkle and Champak. These were Indian comics, and even they had these kind of stories, like three young boys would go into like a temple in the middle of the night, and that would be haunted, and So that seemed a little more doable. So I would write stories which
You
were
would?
yeah, I would try and write those kind of stories. But again, I was just always in awe of like how people could tell compelling stories, and that's always been a childhood fascination for me.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What about with your friends, for example? What role did you play? We talked about this a little earlier, but like, how would you describe what you were like in that social setting?
I was always seeking friendships and slightly more. So I always had more, well, for the lack of a better word, like stamina to play. So I would, like, if we would play cricket, if the agenda was to play cricket for like a couple of hours in the morning, I would just hope that like, we could play on like
Right.
the whole day. But all these other kids were like so disciplined and nice, and like
Wanted to go home and study.
Yeah, the moms would call and they would rush back home, and I was like you've just started, And even in summer vacation, some of their lives were so like well organized, but I just had endless amounts of time,
Right.
and I was like, if we are in the middle of like, so I've always enjoyed this feeling of endless time and being in a zone. Right? Like I like the idea of if you're playing cricket, then till your bodies like break down,
Yeah.
you just keep playing. And that's also one reason why I enjoy writing so much, because I try and give myself the same amount of luxury, which is like, hey, you don't have to achieve something, but you have time.
Right.
And then your mind can do all sorts of things in that time, and what could come out could be special. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't like to be like, hey, you've got 20 minutes, write something. And
Not that
it's just-
regimented.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, to me, it's like the fundamentals of creativity, right? Like, you don't regiment yourself, you allow yourself unlimited time, you get
Yeah.
into the zone. So you sound like you were a creative person and had the makings of a creative person right from the beginning. Because what I'm hearing is that you love to play.
Yes, I love to play, and I love the idea of like what boredom gives you, like, and that's what I miss, and that has changed so drastically with time.
Yeah.
It's this ability and this freedom to be bored, and I miss that so desperately sometimes, because
Yeah.
I mean, of course, now everything, even though you don't want to give it a time cap, unfortunately has a time cap. So I miss, but what I really did value though in my childhood was the freedom to get bored, and then what came out of the boredom,
Yeah.
which was often silly but creative and imaginative. Yeah, and thankfully I didn't take to like just watching TV all day, or
Yeah.
I'm quite grateful I didn't make those choices. My parents had no role to play because they were extremely liberal with what I could do.
They were just like, do whatever you want.
Do whatever you want, like just 2-3 meals a day, but that's it. So yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's like that allowed you to just discover for yourself, like, what do I like to do with my time? And
Yeah, it's funny though, because I mean, of course, your childhood is peppered with many, many things,
Yeah.
but memory is also strange, because now when I talk about this, I'm latching onto this specificity of my
Yeah.
childhood, because that's the most memorable and
Yeah.
formative in my head. But of course, there were some summer vacations spent thinking about a girl you like. Some summer vacations getting introduced to porn. And so not all of that were very, very productive, but
it all sounds like imaginative stuff, right? Like,
oh yes, absolutely.
I mean,
It's
you're
just-
sitting there imagining, fantasizing about a girl, or
oh,
you're
yes.
watching porn and weaving
Yeah,
fantasies of that,
yeah.
and
Deeply imaginative for sure. I mean, I would go to like the lens, not in the pornography part, but with the girl you had a crush on, and I like just so many things that I could not do because I was so shy, and I just didn't have the ability to walk up to the girl and talk to her about what I felt. So it was just amazing because then every day was a story.
Yeah.
And every night before, I remember there was one summer vacation, every night before I went to bed, I would sleep 30 minutes earlier than usual because then I could have 30 minutes
Time to think.
to just think about how our lives would play out.
Amazing, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't realize how much somebody who doesn't take action necessarily,
Yeah.
how much more stories you must be weaving in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, just I don't know how you see that though, because I mean I wish I'd told her though. Like some of those could have been real. And,
But that was your journey, you know.
Yes,
Like
yeah.
you spent a lot of time just with yourself, with your fantasies, and then that whole journey of finding the courage to actually say those things. That's a whole nother
yeah.
like story, right?
Yeah.
Before we go into that journey, just a little more on your childhood. Like, what about your family? Like, what role did you play in you know, you had a small family, but what was that like?
So my parents have been. So it's. I mean, very quickly, but I was the second child to my mother. The first was unfortunately, the child had sort of died, for the lack of a more
Yeah.
kinder word,
Yeah.
at birth. So, and my mom could not conceive for the next 10 odd years.
Wow.
So it was
Yeah.
very hard for my parents. I was like sort of a precious child.
Yeah.
So at one level, I was obviously peppered with a lot of love and kindness, and like many other single children, slightly privileged, I was just showered with love, especially by my mother.
Yeah.
But but there are still some things which have informed some of how I've become today.
Who you are.
Is obviously the setup in my family is a bit patriarchal. My father also has a temper, so I also do remember, and I don't know how I've come to be that way. I don't know the science behind it or the psychology behind it, but I do remember some nights, again when I was really young, my father would shout at my mother, and I just couldn't take any action because I was really young and I didn't know what to do, and I would just be scared, quiet and scared, and so I always was afraid of their fights, and I could not intervene, and that's become a pattern, and that became a pattern. It was like, okay, if my father
Yeah.
is angry with my mother, I'm not going to interfere.
Yeah.
I'm just going to watch, and that just stuck. And
It was almost like you were stuck in that observer role,
yes,
and action was something that did not come easy. You did not know what was possible, even how to do that.
yeah, and so in some sense that a combination of someone who talks in a really loud voice makes me quieter,
Yeah.
and I sort of want to shield myself away from
Yeah.
that kind of communication,
Yeah.
and so in that sense I've also tried to avoid conflict as I've grown up, because I just didn't find, it's not like it helped my parents in any way, that dynamic. I imagine it made my mother less assertive about her needs because she knew what the reaction would be, and so I didn't value the role that a temper or anger played, and so a lot of my friends and even people at work call me very zen and very calm and very like, when was the last time you saw Anuj get angry? And it's never. Or there's very, very few occasions that I do get angry or like lose my cool and shout. I mean, I do get angry, but in my own sort of the expression is different.
Yeah.
But so anyway, that's an interesting part of my childhood, which
That
actually
really shaped you.
and that plays out now, especially in a work setup. It plays out very strongly.
Because conflict and fights, and that's one kind of communication gone wrong.
Yeah.
Right? And what I'm hearing from you is that perhaps it also fed into your inaction.
Yeah.
And fed into your moving away from communication.
Yeah.
Overall.
Yeah.
Even good types of communication.
Yeah.
How can you talk more about that? Like, how has it affected you today and how you communicate and how you interact with the close relationships in your life?
I think it's really the trickier parts where I just tend to just shut. And as you grow up, those come up
Yeah.
more often. And like with friends, there is sometimes an awkward dynamic. Sometimes there's a small tiff that
Yeah.
can escalate if you don't talk about it. And those are places where I come across either as like an escapist or evasive, or
Yeah.
someone who will bury, sort of push it under the carpet.
Yeah.
and and I do that. There are many times when I do it, when I'm like, hey, this is like, okay, because I assume everyone's ability or the way they deal with conflict is similar.
Right.
So it's like, if I can move past it, I'm pretty sure the other person does the same
Right.
thing,
Right.
which is not true.
Right.
So that assumption, of course, has caused hurt to the other person more than me.
Yeah, because they might actually interpret it as he doesn't care.
He doesn't care. And
Yeah.
he's like, okay, he's so casual about this. And,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've struggled to talk about trickier situations. Of course, now, in the last few years, I'm more deeply aware about this. So, and of course, work sometimes compels you and forces you to, and because some people also demand a resolution.
Absolutely.
And so, in those situations, of course, I've said, okay, this is not comfortable for me, but it's like many other skills that you don't fully learn when you're younger, but you
Yeah.
just have to, because it's important. So,
Right. And what's that like when you finally do communicate and when you learn those skills too? How does it feel different when you do that?
I think I'm still learning to cope with them, but yeah, I've just seen the benefits. It's like, that you have anxiety around it, but when you do it, you see how liberating it is for both people, and you realize that some of the anxiety was just internal,
Yeah.
and, and the other person is in fact happy,
Right.
and thinks of it as a very natural and good thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the sooner you do it, it's just healthier. So I'm learning to over communicate now.
Amazing.
Which is, again, it's something that I've learned in books, and also from a lot of startup founders say that, and that's helping in personal life as well, because I am with people who are very expressive. Even
Yeah.
my Sharanya is extremely expressive. My dynamics with my parents continues to remain a little thwarted, but
Yeah.
over communication, at least for someone like me, is helping, because actually I'm not over communicating, I'm just barely about communicating.
What
But-
you're calling over communicating is
It's like, hey, this is normal,
a good
man.
amount of communication. What's that like then to like I think the thread here is about who you are and how you've been,
Yeah.
and this was an interesting point, that as you learn to grow and learn to communicate, for example, you're still, you have your family, and when you interact with them, your old patterns sometimes stay the same. And how do you deal with that? Like, how do you deal with showing them new parts of you or trying out new skills with them? Or do you prefer not to? You prefer keeping that?
I think I prefer. Sometimes, because some situations in life are so interesting and exciting, I'm out of natural joy. I'm sharing, or natural disasters. I'm sharing more with them. So it's again, the universe or whatever, like life is taking me into situations where I'm almost being compelled to talk more than I would, because now, after I've gotten married, I stay in a different home.
Yeah.
And so now that I meet them, I also recognize that we have lesser time together. So again, this dynamic has led me to say, okay, hey, like life was great 10 years ago, where I could spend a Sunday and speak for like 20 minutes through the Sunday.
Yeah.
But now I have like 60 minutes, and I want to talk 20 minutes.
You want to share yourself with your parents as well.
So I do it, but I still prefer, and I'm nostalgic about
The good old days.
the good old days
Of not needing to talk.
yeah. And I was like, I'm hoping they understand, but yeah. So there are some parts of who you are that are sort of dear to you. Dear because they're also comfortable,
Yeah.
more than dear.
Yeah.
I think they're comfortable, and
Yeah.
as you grow up, there's just so many discomforts to deal with.
Yeah, that you want to retreat.
Yeah, you want to be like, hey, like, let not everything change.
Right,
You
right.
know, let some parts be, because I think again with friends I'm really blessed
Yeah,
because they allow me to be, but with family also they do. But I now recognize that hey, I can't exploit their kindness.
Right.
You know, I want to like. I've learned these skills at work, and they help there. So I think it's healthier to take them back home too.
Right.
Because you don't want it to be like effort,
Yeah.
you know.
Right.
And the more you do it, it becomes you.
Yeah. So interesting. It's almost like you want to retreat back to your childhood a bit, and like for all that loneliness and all that, but you sort of want to recreate sometimes that kind of silence
Yes.
around you.
Yes.
And because that was so comfortable at the end of the day. And to have people who talk a lot or who communicate a lot, it's like effort.
It's effort.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I seek both. I value the fact that now I'm with so many amazing people. I want to talk more about my life.
Yeah.
But I also deeply seek like solitude.
Yeah.
Right? So
Right.
it's like, hey, allow me my cave for a while.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
let me come into the sunshine and have like food and
Right,
banter and
right.
conversation. But as me, I don't think I can run away from my need for a cave.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think I thrive the most in solitude.
Yeah.
I think I have some of the most meaningful conversations with my own self in solitude,
Right.
and the process of either writing or thinking about writing. I think that's really my, like, it feeds nourishes my soul, and
Right.
it's not like just poetic, but you really feel it in the bones, and
Yeah.
and it's like, hey, this process of being on a chair and looking at a wall and an empty screen
Yeah.
or like an empty journal without having any barrier on time.
Right.
It's one of those things when you look at your life and go, hey, when were you like really, really happy? And you could have made a lot of money or done many, many other more tangible things which externally would mean amazing things. But
For you,
This
it's those
is-
moments. And that's so interesting to me because when you were talking before you said that's when I thrive, I was thinking that, well, when you're with people, you know, you want communication and you want to be around people because that's also where you learn. And I thought that is also where one thrives because you're interacting with people and, you know, sharing, like, having moments of laughter or having moments of connection and, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like you need both. But then you said I thrive when I'm in my solitude, and I thought that's so important for you to know. And, you know, is there a thriving that you find in both solitude and with people?
I do, and that's something I'm learning because I feel, which is why the cave and the sunlight, they both are, you can't do without the other.
Yeah,
But if I had to choose, I would choose the
to
cave.
the cave, absolutely.
But I feel like if you're only isolated, you lose out on just incredible. It's like what this guy says in Into the Wild, which is happiness is only real when shared. And I tend to, I'm moving closer to that because I feel like it's still amazing to create it,
Yeah,
but I think I'm beginning to see how beautiful it is to talk about it, to share
absolutely.
it, and especially with not necessarily a very large group of people.
Absolutely. It's
But-
like finding the right ways to
To-
engage with the sunlight, and
Yes.
like you don't have to
Yeah.
enjoy all settings, and
Yeah.
and it's like where you find inspiration and
Yeah.
you find
So that is something I'm not very. I mean that's more interesting from a growth point of view because that's not something I've done very comfortably, but yeah, that gives a lot of joy. I'm not sure about the thriving because I'm still to experience it fully.
Absolutely, I get that.
It's there's a happiness there which is also beautiful.
Right. It sounds like you're still finding how, what way to interact with the world.
Yeah.
When you come out of your cave.
And also it's the seeking of the cave, right? Like
Yeah.
right now, in fact, I feel like I'm in the sunlight.
Oh, too much.
Too much.
Yeah.
And well, I know I can do a hygienic job of being in the sunlight.
Yes.
But I'm like, hey, I want to bring.
Yeah.
Like,
you're not able to enjoy it.
Bring the discoveries from my solitude into the sunlight, and for that I need to go there.
Yeah.
Right? So
you need to be grounded in your cave and in your, silence and, all of that.
So.
Wow. So how do you give it to yourself? How do you cope with that now when you don't find that you have enough of it?
I think it again you have to be, I think you have to, for the lack of a better word, snatch it almost.
Yeah.
Because with time I've recognized like it won't find its way into your life. Like you suddenly won't have like 4 days where you can be by yourself. Like that's never gonna happen. So I know that I have to push for it.
Yeah.
And I have to say, hey, even if it's going to disappoint some families, the wife, friends, whatever it is, like even people at work might be like, hey, why are you taking like 4 days out? But again, for your nourishment, you got to just like
absolutely
do it.
It's like, it's like that is your essence. You've gotten in touch with what your essence and like core needs are, and then that is giving it to yourself. And that sounds like you learning self-care, you learning, how do I do this for myself? We're not taught to.
Yeah, but is there a way to do it which doesn't feel more like aggressive? Is there? I mean, it's a
what
question.
What do you mean by
like,
aggressive?
Aggressive in the sense, like to say, like more desperate, like
the snatch. You mean?
Yeah, the snatch. Like right now, it almost feels like borderline breakdowny. It's like, hey, if I don't get it, it's like survival almost.
Yeah.
But
you mean that you end up giving it to yourself only when you reach that stage of breakdown.
Yeah.
And I link it with what you were talking about, communication, and how hard it is for you to communicate, because self-care seems to require those setting your limits, being like, I'm sorry, I can't give this to you, and if that's something you struggle with, then I'm hearing you say that you end up giving it to yourself only in desperation, where it's like, no, but I have to take this for myself. And it sounds like a really big challenge.
Yeah.
Like in terms of learning how to give it to yourself more regularly, without guilt, with this confidence of, this is me, I deserve this.
Yeah. I think it comes from a place where, again, it comes from this idea that success necessarily, like what you do, the things you do that make you thrive, may not necessarily have a commercial connotation, right? So, like, I don't know, some people might love cooking, or some people might love reading, and
absolutely,
like really, really love or dancing, and they may not necessarily become sort of pros at any of those things.
Absolutely.
And so, any time in sort of work life that it's also how the education system and how we're, at least the ecosystem around when I was growing up, even now some people like there's this.
Like, what's the payoff here?
What's the payoff, right?
Yeah.
So it's like if I go into a cave and write, and although I do, we're building a writers community at TTT, but again, it may still be more personal, and it may not even be on.
You may not want to write for others. You might want to write just for yourself.
Yeah. So then there is again this some sort of guilt, some sort of indulgence, self-centeredness around it. So those things,
Yeah.
and you don't look at it, or you're not trained to look at it from a self-care lens. It's like, hey, there's so many things to do. What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Taking like 4 days off writing.
It's making me think of how, like, to me, you are the product. Like, your mind is the gold mine, and you have to take care of it and nourish it, and that's part of it producing gold. And if you don't do that, then you're not going to be able to juice anything out of it either, right? And I don't know, it just reminds me of companies and how a long time back they didn't realize they need to invest in the people. They were just like, no, we need to make the product and in the customers. But if you don't invest in your inner resources, what will come out will be crap, right? And I feel like it's the same here, where it's like, if you don't invest in, yourself and the people inside your head, for a lack of a better analogy, it's like those people are not going to give you any good work.
It's like, screw you.
Yeah, screw you. You don't care about me. I'm not motivated. And it's such a common challenge, like learning how to give ourselves that time and making that connection between productivity and output. I guess that's what's hard. It's
also
not
the leverage, right? Like sometimes when I think of, again, I don't know if you're chronological here, but I'm just making
That's fine.
So even when I think of TTT, right, the idea of TTT just came from some amount of boredom. It came from some amount of watching, observing, but with intention, with some congruency, and it came with it came with the luxury of time too, and I think good creative work comes with that. It needs some amount of freedom. It needs some amount of trust. And if I had to look at my own self from the outside, I would allow myself that, saying, hey, like take 3 days out without the operational delivery guy on top of your head, and play, right? It's the playing.
Absolutely.
And the playing can yield incredible things, but because we're so used to, hey, take 2 hours and come out with this, right? Because we're so used to seeing something very tangible, defined as the outcome of play. That if that's not defined, it's scary for everyone involved.
Absolutely.
And so it's like, hey, if you took 3 days out and nothing came out, I'd
it's
be
okay.
like, but it'd be like, hey, you just took a holiday.
I know.
And sometimes play is, you may not see something very clear come out of play.
Absolutely. You have to be okay with just playing and enjoying it and trusting that stuff will come out if you keep playing. That's just our natural tendency. Like we'll create something.
We'll create something.
Not all of it will be stuff we want to share with others, but like, how is TTT then a reflection of like who you are?
So as we speak, it's a great question. We are so it's currently, if it had to reflect a part of me, it would reflect this operational excellence part of me that I'm more tuned into today. So and I'm also leveraging that part because for whatever reason I've become better at that.
Right.
So, and there are still places where we're not very good operationally. So I'm like, hey, let me at least, if I've worked hard on improving these parts of me, I want to make sure that at least, and because a lot of creative organizations actually also do suffer from not being very operationally sound. So they become too playful and too for the lack of a better word, loose and ambiguous, and while that's a deeply important part of the process, it can lead to chaos, which can also be very, very difficult to control. So we've been able to do that quite well, but I miss the play.
Because it started out with reflecting it came out of your play.
Yeah.
Right? And
So-
that's still a part of you, as much as you don't want to get carried away by it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to build that back both into me and also in the organization.
Yeah.
So I'm also encouraging all our writers to write more,
Yeah.
because again we all started wearing the curator hat.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, we are managing a community, we're going to take the best work from the community. So
Yeah.
while we have some phenomenal writers in the team, they've all started becoming very good at operations, but forgetting that
Yes.
they're writers first,
Yeah.
like me. Right,
Absolutely, and I think that happens a lot. Like, companies and employees often follow the journey of their founder,
Yeah.
and when the founder and the leaders
So, yeah.
grow and something changes within them, somehow everything around them changes. At least that's what I believe.
No, I think it's the responsibility, because I mean that's how organizations are structured. Of course, I'm trying to learn so much, because all these guys are, again, they're so creative and amazing. So I'm trying to see what the collective culture emerges, because there's just so many amazing things to learn,
Yeah.
and then say, hey, this is us as
Yeah.
TTT. But yeah, there is no escaping the fact that they come in because they no one wants to go nowhere.
Yeah.
Right? They see not just the destination, but also as and I think it's amazing if collectively you can become an organization that cares for growth,
Yeah.
for the self, and yet the collective. I think it's like, imagine being in this environment every day.
Yeah.
Right? If everyone's tuned into the same energy,
Absolutely.
that's like going into this energy every morning and feeling like, wow, like there's
Seriously.
just someone creating this and someone's creating that. And
So, coming back to your identity, I guess, what's that like at work then? What's your identity like? We talked about, your identity as a child, and then, as you were growing through that, what's it like at work?
hard for me to, I mean, it would be nicer
To hear it from someone else.
from someone else. But from what I can,
How do you see yourself? Forget how it comes across.
I think there's definitely a deep belief that I'm very, very open and trusting of my team's talent. So there is no desperate need for control. So I feel like I can empower quite well, and I hope that's true. So it's like, hey, if you're doing this, so there's the trust as an identity. I think I do believe. I also feel like there is, well, on the downside, I think I'm not. I don't push hard enough sometimes, because I feel like when I'm empowering, I hope that there is self-drive,
Right.
but that's not always true.
Yeah.
And so I feel sometimes that that gets missed out again, because I don't communicate enough, maybe.
Right. Right.
So, and there's an expectation
Yeah. So there's things left in the unsaid.
in the unsaid. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, I trusted you with something so important,
Yeah.
and with some people they deliver, and you expect that out of the entire team.
And some people need more guidance
More
and
guidance.
feedback and check-ins and things like that.
and working more closely,
Yeah.
and of course the Zen bit of the identity.
Yeah.
I think most people in the team do think of me as approachable and calm, and so in that sense, if there is conflict or a place of discomfort, I think people are able to talk to me, knowing that there won't be an emotional, impulsive reaction. So hopefully a culture where there's less of fear.
Yeah. They can also trust
Yes.
that you can be approached.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Which is so important in a leader.
yeah, and I think in a creative place especially,
Yeah.
fear honestly should have no place, because I think the most beautiful things come out of like vulnerable places,
Yeah. Absolutely.
and especially stories, they come out of like deeply vulnerable places.
Absolutely.
I mean, it'd be the worst thing, like a culture of fear for a company that believes in storytelling. Right?
Yeah, because how do you play then? And
How do you play? How do you, how do you fall sometimes? How do you talk about something that is so deeply personal? If the culture doesn't allow you to, then you'll always have vapid, hollow, very, very surfacey stories. And going forward, that's definitely not what we want to do. Although we do sometimes say those stories, but I think the ones that move people the most or stay with people the most are from very personal spaces. Not always dark or sad, but even the entertaining ones. They come from, you need to tap into your inner world, and if you're not able to share it with joy or with like abandon, then you're going to be like, hey, what if someone laughs at me if I shared this, or what if it becomes a joke in the office? And
it sounds like such a beautiful outlet to express yourself when writing these stories, and it's like you may not want to talk about what actually happened, or you may want to veil it in a fictional setup, but that allows you to express your truth. And
that's where some of my inability to communicate finds communication, and it's like, hey, maybe there are many like me, and I'm going to use words to not just say what I have to, but hopefully say it for many other people.
Wow. So how do you deal with, to me, I'm coming back to this question of being yourself fully, and like to me, this idea of thriving is linked with being yourself. And so what are the challenges you face around just being yourself, even in your organization or outside?
I think my biggest problem is really the chatter in my mind. I think the anxiety around fully being me, because of I think there's a fear of, I think the isolation and me not talking enough has created a gap, I feel, in me being able to, like, there are very few people who I can talk to with this kind of comfort.
Right.
And of course I don't expect to have this kind of comfort with everyone, but just an approachability where I feel like I'm very open, but I don't feel the same way for every other person. So I'm very, very conscious about
how they'll judge you.
Yeah. And so I'm always being a little safe. I'm being cautious, and also I'm trying to be more responsible than I am. And of course my friends see through it.
But is responsibility the guise for safety? Like,
it's the guise, is responsibility or being measured. So saying the correct things, the wise things.
Where did that come from?
I think that came from the fact that there was the time in my life where I was becoming a bit of a joker. So I was actually on the other end of the spectrum. I was really silly. So very quickly, if I have to trace it, from a quiet, solitary kid in school, I met like dear friends like Vishal and Sharan, and I actually found great expression and abandon. Which is amazing because it transformed me. And so I became extremely comfortable with being silly, being mischievous. It unlocked this amazing playful side, which was there in private, but it became more public. And I wouldn't judge myself. I loved it. I also liked the fact that it was also celebrated in some way, and in school you find validation for these silly things. So it was great. But at some point, some of the things we did in school were just really mean. And so I don't know. I think with books or reading, I don't know why, but
you started judging
myself, and also I went through my own set of physical health issues. I had like a eating disorder, like a digestion disorder. So I also became very introspective about my own body, my own thoughts, and because when you have a food disorder, a lot of, I mean, everything you eat, you're hyper aware of things you eat.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then generally you're hyper aware of your mind.
Yeah.
And so I became very,
You're constantly in caution mode.
You're in caution mode.
Yeah.
And like, I'll have a bite of like a burger, and I'll like I'll feel every part of my body, the food going through every part
like
of my body, and it's like,
yeah.
this is what it's doing to my body. This is what it's doing.
Yeah.
You feel lumpy right now, and
Yeah.
if your brain, the blood's flowing to the stomach and not your brain, and you're super aware. And so it made me so inward that it also took away some of the humor from me, because I was like, I was so aware of what my words could do to the other person, how they would. So it was great because I was empathetic, but I also became very, very serious.
Yeah.
And also, of course, then the kind of stuff I was reading, and I was just extremely.
You just withdrew in a way.
I just withdrew, and then of course I tried to bring that part of myself out whenever I could, but I realized that if that was not. And also when you grow up, there's the career expectation, so which is what we spoke about a bit. So when you're a bit of a clown and playful, but if you're not taking care of your self-worth, that can become the dominant identity.
Yeah. That I'm a joker, I'm a good for nothing.
I'm a good for nothing joker, and which is what happened. And so I think as a defense against that, I thought it's nicer to just be like wise about things.
Yeah, you
and
just
say the right
molded
things.
yourself
And
into.
So I'm like, I'm the startup guy, and I'm going to be like, I'm not going to be silly because I have to sound profound.
Yeah.
And so, I try to always pause before I said something, because I could be judged as someone who's dumb and who doesn't know. And
it sounded like you wanted to control your narrative. You wanted to control the narrative about you.
Yes.
You didn't want to be just seen in one way, and so you fashioned yourself in a way that you could control the narrative. And now you are, in some sense, would you say breaking out of the narrative, or
a bit, yes. And since we've spoken, it's been harder, of course. But I am like, even like yesterday when we were hanging out.
Yeah.
Like I'm a little more silly with every passing day, because I'm like, hey, it's okay.
I can allow this part of me back in.
Yeah.
Because
and also, I mean, I don't know, maybe you need a certain amount of journey and validation in career or some part of your life, right? Where you're like, hey, I can build something, and I can tick those boxes off if required. I don't know why it meant something to me for me to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Not required, honestly, but it was like, hey,
you wanted to prove it to yourself.
Yeah.
And sometimes when we label ourselves as good for nothing and just jokers, we don't allow ourselves to create and achieve operational things. And so maybe we need to put ourselves in a different box.
Yeah.
And now you're like, no, I can be both.
Yeah, I can be both without the other suffering. You know? And you don't have to go to the other extreme always.
That's beautiful.
How have you been able to be more playful, man? You've really, like, I mean, because I've watched you at least in the last
years,
many years, but especially in the last couple of years, it's incredible. Like every, and I'm not just saying it. You from deeply private, sometimes extremely lonely.
Yeah.
Long stretches of loneliness and isolation, with many periods of struggle, right? Like months of like struggling with one very, very small thing.
Yeah.
And to now, like, especially the artist, right? Like, I feel like and again, that's a label, I don't know if you wear it now or not.
I do a little bit,
but I just honestly think you're incredible. It's what I was thinking on the way. I was like, in my head, you're really like you're a full-fledged creative person.
Yeah.
And I was like,
I finally started identifying like that,
Yeah, I was like, dude, that's the word I would use for you, and
Yeah.
then like business or
No longer business, right?
yeah,
Like it's more
strategy and like all those things that I thought you. I don't know where that came from. Maybe from
my
your
dad
dad
and yeah.
and what you studied and.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm like, oh, that's many years of
Undoing,
unlayering.
like shedding, right? And that's such a gift for you to tell me that, because yeah, I was associated with business and strategy and uh, even topper. The
Yeah.
word topper is in that world,
Yeah,
right?
it's
In the creative world,
There's
there is no
like
topper.
a concept of a topper.
Yeah, there's just like a creator, a playful person,
Yeah.
and it's been I don't know. It's been a journey of shedding what's not me, which is why I keep coming back to this, harping on this thing of realizing that the journey is about being myself and who am I, and starting to just share that more and more, and letting go of how people perceive me and whether they think I'm stupid or they'll think this. And I realize there's so much joy in it. There's so much.
But is there? I'm sorry, I'm interrupting. But is there a place when someone does say you're stupid or silly? Where do you go to say, hey, this is me or whatever? Like, where is the self-worth grounded in?
It's like saying actually that like if they said that's so silly, I'd be like, yeah, isn't that great? Silly equals great. Silly does not equal bad. Like someone saying, oh, that's so messy, I want to be able to say, yeah, isn't that great? I allowed myself to make a mess. Like we're having fun. And
Nice.
so it's being grounded in my beliefs that silly is good, that messy is good, that imperfect is perfect. And and I think that's what I'm grounded in, so that when someone challenges that, I see it as, I don't have to believe their way of seeing it. In fact, then I can like nudge them towards like, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Like I know people give me feedback to make me be better, and I'm like, but I'm okay this way. Like you should try it. You should try not caring about like being perfect, right? And it's an ongoing struggle, but I don't know. I just, this whole play thing, and like just, I'm enjoying it so much. Just
So, but is there an area you're struggling with right now though?
so many things.
But like
always. A big area I'm struggling with. For me, the struggle is also my mind and myself. Like allowing myself to be a creative person, allowing myself to not have outcomes and regimented, like Megha, you must create this and this. And so every day the struggle is always, in the past it has been, you don't do anything. Megha, you're just all talk, you're just all play, or all, and to be like, no, whatever I'm doing is worthy and like is good. I'm on the right track because I'm learning to just be myself, and I will create. I think I'm almost scared of committing to doing more. I don't want to go into a work zone sometimes. I just want to stay in a creative zone. But yeah, my struggle is with myself, with my judgment of myself, with how to explain, like people asking what I do, and I'm like, I'm an artist. I kind of want to just say that.
Yeah.
I'm a creative person. I have tons of passions, and I just pursue all of them. And then some stuff comes out of it, and I collaborate with people for some of those things, and and so yeah. But my biggest struggles are with myself and with those negative voices inside my head. I'm my biggest critic. I judge myself to no end, and so it's like. But this year I've really been working on like trying to be kind, trying to be like, no, it's okay. Whatever you want to do, we'll do that. Because it's like I have a relationship with myself now, and I talk to myself like I'm another person, and I'll say, we're going to keep going, and I trust you. I trust that you have something powerful to create, and it's going to come out. Don't worry. And I'm so good at encouraging other people, and I'm learning to
do that with yourself.
Yeah, which is not as easy, because that stern, voice is very much there. But
where did that come from?
I think I grew up in a world of excellence. Like my family is very excellence oriented. Like I was always rewarded for being at the top, for being a topper. For it's like if I got 98 out of 100, it's like, oh, where did you lose the 2?
Oh.
You know, I grew up in that culture of admiring, you know,
And that is your extended family as well? Or just-
more my grandparents and my grandfather, my dad, even my mom maybe a little bit, but there was this admiration in society in general, right? Of admiration of the top.
Yeah.
Like, look at how much they've accomplished, and so I think it comes from that this idea that is my self-worth dependent on what I accomplish, and that's what it's always been dependent on. I only got noticed and, in my view, loved when I did well in school, or you know, it's like, no, I'm worthy even if I don't create stuff that. So I've gone from just this achiever mentality to
That's
creative.
hard to layer, though. I can imagine.
Yeah, it's taken years, right?
Yeah,
And it's taken
it's-
years of work on myself, and like writing and talking, and you know, I'm like really into helping myself live the life I want. So yeah, but we'll wrap this up slowly. But where, I guess, one last question for you is that you talked about your journey of who you are, and you know, as a kid, and then growing up and evolving through those play and finding friendship, and then work and molding yourself into this operational guy, entrepreneur guy, and now you're, you know, at TTT, and like, where do you want to go from here? Like, who do you want to be, or how do you want to be more you?
I think I just want to go, you know, the great discovery with this conversation is the cave analogy, right? Like,
Yeah.
to go back into that childhood memory of endless time, and then the sunlight. Like, I really want to figure a way where either through a collective or independently,
Yeah.
I'm able to just do that.
Yeah.
I really want to. Yeah, I want to create. I want
Yeah.
to create through TTT with myself, for sure. Be a little sillier, riskier with my creation.
Yeah.
Not wear the expectation of an audience watching me or reading my things.
Yeah.
I've started blogging.
Yeah.
No one knows where, but I have.
Yay.
So it's that, which is like, hey, I'm gonna write. It's not gonna turn out great, but I'm writing it because I like it. I don't want an audience consciously. I want to
Absolutely.
first write because I enjoy it.
Yes.
It's like I want to go back to the summer vacation and tap into the joy. Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes if you don't do it enough, you forget that there was joy there.
Yeah.
There's deep joy, which is why I'm so
Absolutely.
nostalgic about it.
Yeah.
So it's like but with layers, and it's another kind of layer that I'm having to let go of. And it's like, hey, this is great because it's comfortable, but it's not where I thrive. It's not my place of joy. I've become good at it because I've practiced it many times.
Yeah.
So I'm good at it.
Yeah.
But am I going to be the best in the world at this? Maybe not.
Yeah.
So if I don't tap into the cave side of me, I'll just be and I'm not the efficient guy. I'm
Yeah.
not the clinical CEO who's
You're
going to
not.
be like this amazing schedule
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
I will
Absolutely.
struggle at that. So
Yeah.
and it doesn't even give me joy. So
Yeah.
I'd rather inspire. I'd rather create something that inspires, where the leadership comes out of that.
Yeah.
Where people are like, fuck, wow, this is the culture. It's so inspiring.
Yeah.
That we want to be a part of this.
Absolutely. And it's like inspiring from who you are being.
Yeah, who I'm being,
Rather
and not
than,
like it's cool to be at TTT, or it's like one of these
Yeah.
other attributes,
Yeah.
or I'm the CEO of TTT, and like I found a lot of validation actually in calling myself CEO, because
Yeah, absolutely.
that's like the business guy who I
Yeah.
wanted to be. But now I'm like, hey, take that away. I don't care.
Absolutely.
It's
like
not about.
I'm
yeah,
a creator.
I'm a creator, and
Yeah.
I'd rather be celebrated as or fuck the celebration. I'd really be happy if I'm creating and sharing it with like
Yeah.
a few people.
And I think you're the perfect person to be at the helm then of such an organization, because if you can model play and creating for the joy of creating,
Yeah.
and you can hold on to the operational aspects a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
bit, but if you can model that, then what more does an organization need to be inspired to to really allow people to be their full selves
Yeah.
and enjoy coming to work, and that's beautiful. That's a beautiful.
It's like someone said, don't get your. It's a very old, popular, overtly used quote, but about don't get people to make boats, but instead make them thirst for the endless sea.
And they'll build the boats to
And
go there.
Yeah, it's like you.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and that's what you want. You want people to say, hey, there's this like vast ocean where we can do so many things. We'll do anything to get there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where I want to move internally first.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Thank you. All right.
All right. Please tell me this is recorded.